Okay, thank you and good evening. We've got a special meeting of council. As always, every year we set a special meeting of council aside to discuss the fees and charges for the upcoming year. So this year, of course, the reports on 2019 fees and charges. Called the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Any disclosure of interest? Do you have a motion here? Council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation on 2000 fees and charges? No. No, we'll get right into it. Sorry. Daryl. Chuck.
Mr. Verba will make the report, Your Worship.
Chuck. Thank you.
Prior to the start of each fiscal year, rates for municipal provided goods and services are presented for Council's approval. In determining 2019 fees and charges, the following implications are considered: legislated rates, Council's cost recovery objectives, operating cost increase, and comparisons with similar services offered elsewhere. Generally, a 2% increase was applied to many of the fees in recognition of labor negotiations. A 4% increase was added to the machine component of equipment rental. Summary of the proposals are: the burning permit for outdoor fire pits and fireplaces will increase to $25. Based on the amount of work required and in review of other jurisdictions, the fire chief recommends that the cost of reports increase from $66 to $80. Last year, the local taxi business requested a 20% increase, which was the first change in over 8 years. There is no increases this year. Tipping fee at the waste transfer station up $5 to $80 per ton, effective April 1st. The minimum will be $12 or 6 bag tags. No change to the bag tag rate of $2. Households that generate a significantly lower amount of waste and have it collected by the town's garbage truck will not see an increase in the cost of disposing their garbage. In 2017, the net cost of waste disposal was $167,000. This amount was funded through property tax. It's recommended that water and sewer rates remain the same, but those requiring town services to turn utilities on and off will see a 2% increase due to labor. No increases to the arena, and generally pool activities will stay the same, but we recommend that we increase pool swimming lessons to $70 per session. Marathon will still be lower than Terrace Bay and Thunder Bay. In addition, we're requesting that child admission to the pool be increased 25 cents to $3.50. Last change was in 2017 when we also increased it by 25 cents. It's recommended that golf memberships be increased 4%. It is believed that providing a play and stay discount and reducing green fees for local adults do not generate additional participation. Both should be canceled. An adult membership will be $575.50. In Terrace Bay, the Aguasaban Golf Course charged $670 for an annual membership in 2018. The Peninsula Golf Course will offer a monthly pass of $208. 9 holes of golf will cost an adult $24.75. The townships of Schreiber and Wawa charge over $28 per game to play in their municipal ballpark. Administration recommends that the rate for Dyers Fields be increased from $21 a game to $25. No changes to the camping rates at Penn Lake Park. Users' fees generate approximately $2.5 million in revenue annually. Options available to council with respect to this matter include accepting the proposed 2019 fees and charges as presented with Bylaw 1942, or accept the proposed fees with amendments. Administration presents this proposal for your consideration and approval.
Thank you. And any questions of Chuck before we get into any motions? Hearing none? Okay, so I have a motion here to put on the floor. That council hereby accepts the attached report and recommendation 2019 fees and charges, and further that the appropriate bylaw be adopted later this evening, approving the 2019 fees and charges. Moved by Councillor Lake, seconded by Councillor Debuchy. Any questions, comments? Councillor Valance.
And I guess it's more for Daryl. What is it, plain stay? The stay employee discount, is
Well, it's certainly something we would explore if council wished us to. One thing I can state is our golf course revenues have been down the last 2 years, year over year. So, I think rather, the position we took this year was rather than put the entire burden on our local taxpayer and local user and give a discount to the traveling public, that we would look at the opposite and charge full price for green fees for those using them, which would limit the amount of increase to the local user. So I do see both sides of it. It's just, we've seen the number of memberships locally decrease the last 2 years, and we're seeing that revenue decline. So rather than, put the onus on the local user to generate the dollars we require to run the course, that we chose to take the route and recommend to council that we look at eliminating the stay and play and have the traveling public start to make up some of that difference.
Makes sense, thank you.
I'd also like to comment on that. I think that the Stay and Play was a program that we tried to see if there was generating revenue. I think if the hotelers, the owners of those facilities want to look at promoting their weekend stays and having packages put together, I'm sure there's opportunities to work with the town for bulk purchasing of discount green
Absolutely.
fees. That's not necessarily in the fees and charges, but there's opportunities I think for those people to promote their room, because typically we're full during the week but quieter on the weekends, and so if they want to promote those as weekend packages, that'd be a great opportunity for them come to speak to you directly and find out what kind of deal we can work out for them to pass out those passes, right, as part of their hotel stay. Councillor Lake?
I'm not, I don't golf, so is there a large portion of people from out of town that come and use the course, or when I go, I usually see local folks out there, but.
Yeah, I think there, I don't have the numbers in front of me. We haven't crunched them exactly, right? But I think there is a large component of the traveling public that does play. Specifically, if there's, they are staying for a longer period than just one day. So for, at the end of the day, does it, how much revenue does it garner us? It's in the thousands, but it makes a difference, right? Knowing where we're at on the bottom line with all of our recreation facilities going forward.
And it's a nice to know. We don't necessarily know if they didn't get the 50% discount, would they still not golf?
But you gotta remember also, nice opportunity for the ones who are staying here and doing work, like the contractors are here for a month, 3 weeks, so they can also purchase the monthly pass and take advantage of a discounted rate for that month while they're here working. So we'll and I notice a lot of those guys, those individuals that come out and stay here for work, they'll come into the golf course and play more regularly.
So, Your Worship, if I could just comment on that point, that's really important, and it goes to Councillor Lake's question. So, theoretically, if, you were here working as a contractor, staying in the hotel for a month, you could take advantage of the stay and play every day and get a 50% discount. Right? So we're losing that half of the revenue, whereas if they're forced to buy the monthly pass,
right,
we gain that revenue on the back end.
And that's another thing we can promote as well, is that if they're interested, that should be something that's sold to them as a part of the package. The hotel, again, hey, if you're here for, or at the park, whatever, we got these wonderful golf packages that offer for a monthly package, because rather than paying the $24 at the new fee structure, the 32 for 18, you have a $200 fee per month that you can golf every day on your evenings when you come into town, right? So, any other questions, comments? Councillor Bushi?
Are we going to talk about the golf one, or is it over further?
Whatever you like.
So the golf portion, first off, is how did you derive on the monthly? Because just to let you know, $208 is pretty cheap for a month.
But so is $575 for a year. So it was divided by the last few seasons on how long we've been open, and make it so that it's not more advantageous to buy a monthly, but to buy a yearly.
Because theoretically, and why I'm getting at this is, you're right, it's less expensive. However, if you are golfing, and we have the bad start we had again this year or last year, theoretically, the prime time was only July, part of June, July, and part of August, right? So
And September, lots of comments were made. It was prime golfing conditions, and again, who has the crystal ball to know whether May will be good or not?
The fact there is for $408, you can get your prime golf in the time you want it. I just thought it was low. Other places where you offer the services, that's roughly about a weekly rate. Okay? Now I know that maybe a bit more plus, but I just thought that it's still hedging pretty close to that should I just buy a month at a time or buy a full membership? And from our perspective, we want them to buy the membership for the cash flow issues, right? As opposed to waiting for them to decide when they wanna play. Do I wanna play June 15th to August 15th, pay 2 months? Or do I wanna pay the $575 for the whole fifth?
We haven't experienced very many monthly purchases anyways, and we've been offering it for the last 2 years.
Councilor Lake?
I think just as a point of principle, what I like about, especially in recreation we do, is we try to give as many people as possible an opportunity. Like, I like the monthly one as, someone who's got a really tough work schedule, like a teacher. You get those 2 months off, so those are 2 great months that I might want to golf, but I can't really golf in June or in September. I'm just not kind of available. So that fits, for example, someone like me. I also really like the 4-hole rate that the golf course, to get beginner golfers in, right? Like, you got a little kid, 4 holes is perfect. So I hear you, Councillor Tabushi, but I don't think it's about it is about maximizing money on some level, but it's also about trying to get as many people into recreation as possible. And so I think you're right. If it would be very few people that are only going to use a couple months, but it's nice if you're going to be away for a month, or you're going to miss a month of that summer, which is short anyway. I kind of like the idea that it's there at that price.
We've been noticing for the last 5 years that memberships are going down. Golf greens are going up, but memberships are going down because of
Fly in, fly
work scheduling and stuff happening, so.
Anything else? Councilor Bushi?
When you have the
Thank you.
When you have the roll-off rate, did we compare what the local market bears? Because we really wouldn't want to underprice
We are
or
not,
be.
we don't want to be in the business.
Yeah, okay.
And
So it is comparable plus
Yes.
what the private sector is offering.
Yes, the one benefit for ordering a roll-off from the municipalities, we have a larger bin. So we're specialized in that way. But we don't enjoy renting bins, again, because it's a lot of work that's disruptive, but it's something that was identified way back when we first opened up the waste transfer station, that roll-off bins was an opportunity to double up on what's being done anyways at the transfer station, so the opportunity to rent it was given. But I believe the private company right now is a lot more competitive.
Anything else? I think you've presented a really reasonable fees and charges for this year. Obviously, we're trying to keep things in check, and we know what happens when you have a higher increase. You tend to lose some users. By losing 1 or 2 users at a $500 rate, for example, for golfing, or $270 or for swimming, $300, it takes you 15 more members to get that one loss by increasing, a higher rate of percentage. So it's a really good proposed fees and charges for 2019. I don't think anybody's going to have any major concerns in regards to that. Our tipping fee, we're trying to encourage individuals to come to do the curbside rather than come to the landfill site. That's one of the reasons why the additional 1 tag for the year, but the actual bag tags are still $2. So the $5 increase per ton for the commercial sector is not huge. As far as the arena usage and the pool usage, we're trying to encourage more people to utilize those programs. So it's a good all-around fees and charges structure. There's no question about that. Water and sewer, there's no major increases there. Some of the user groups did a little adjustment, but it's really good. So thank you for that, Councillor Lake.
I know one of the things that had been raised by the minor hockey board, but I think it goes kind of to some of the other stuff we have, like Hockey's and Heroes. And when we have those tournaments, it certainly is good for the economy of the community. Lots of people come, stay in hotels, shop in businesses. We had been approached about potentially having a tournament rate for ice rentals, kind of a lowered value. I don't know if Recreation had looked at that or if that's something we would consider.
Yeah, so I've spoken with Mr. Watson on that item, and we're going to explore it in the new year. It obviously, there's only 3.5 months of our ice season left, so to implement it on January 1st doesn't make a lot of sense. But certainly, the council can amend the fees and charges for the upcoming ice season in 2019, and we will spend some time exploring what that might look like and maybe what other communities are doing as well in terms of best practices.
Sure.
And don't forget, when we're having a tournament, it's not 12 hours of hockey.
Right.
You'll find now that with lower participation, the hockey groups are starting later in the day and ending earlier in the evening, and it's not necessarily 3 solid days of hockey.
Councillor Bushy.
Also, too, I was, had mentioned in my campaign, and I think it's one thing that we touch base on, with the recreation facilities we have and moving forward either for capital, I proposed a recreation fee and I circulated one of the ideas. What I would ask for permission from council is to move this forward into administration. I understand that because we're halfway through the ice hockey season already, it doesn't make sense to do that, and it doesn't make sense to affect our race fees and charges at this point in time. I think the transition time would probably be more in line with the ice, summer ice coming online, and if we have to adjust certain things from that point. One of the things I think this would go towards is a capital fund for recreation, because as we all know, if we're looking at a new arena, it's going to cost money, and if we don't get a new arena or do a new arena, we're going to have to do something to upgrade our facilities. So one of the things I've asked, and if it's with the council's approval, we can ask administration to explore the idea behind recreation fees so that our residents are able to have one rate if they have a recreation fee, and if you don't support recreation in that way, then you just don't buy the recreation fee. But it's a way of generating some revenues for capital projects other than purely tax-based, okay? And with tax bases, we all know it's disproportionate to some sectors of our community. I think the other thing too is we have to get our user groups in line with this, because for us to ask them to have a recreation fee for somebody who's only in minor hockey has to get on board. So if they pay, if they're a participant has a recreation or their family has a recreation membership, then they pay a certain rate. And if not, because they choose not to, then they pay a higher rate. We don't want that money. That could go towards them as revenue, extra sources of revenue, but it makes that incentive for a family or an individual or a couple to buy this recreation fee. Number one, it goes directly towards capital projects that I think it's an offset from tax base. And I think the other thing too, it does take advantage of people not part of our community, and we state it. You know, instead of asking our recreation or our users on our tax base to supplement all recreation, the people who come and use our facilities pay a 10% or 15% premium with a non-rec state. You know, there are some logistic things to worry about. There's some administration things to worry about, but it's no different than the facilities in Thunder Bay where I buy a golf membership, but I can buy levels. So I buy a level, and each time I go golfing, I can pay $10, or I pay $5, or I don't pay anything. But that's the level you have it. So I think that's one of the ideas behind it, is that we're not asking for it to go to our general operation. We're asking it to fund future recreation projects that we're going to need, or future capital issues we're going to need.
Okay, Councilor Lake?
Sorry, I think I need some clarification. So we had run the active living program,
Yep.
but this is not that. This is not a.
No, it's basically a surtax on recreation in a
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay, it's what it is. Okay, and we're asking, and what, you know, I hate to use the term revenue neutral, but the idea behind it is if you're paying $60 for a recreation pass, then if you take advantage of golf and say swimming, and I'll use myself for an example, that $60 would be offset in what I would save based on the base rate with a rec fee and a non-rec fee users.
So you'd still. So if I bought a recreation pass, I'd still have to pay as I went into the pool, or?
No, you could
golf
either
course?
pay as you go into the pool and save 10% on the purchase, whereas a non-user would pay 10% or whatever percentage more, okay? And if you bought a membership, you would get a discounted rate, okay? The idea behind this is not to, in a sense, it's to gear part of the revenues or the cash flow from recreation to recreation projects, as opposed to us saying we needed $300,000 for the compression, you know, if it ever went, or we needed, you know, $1 million to renovate the pool. Okay, I mean, those kind of things would be there. The revenue stream would be annual. So I mean, if you had a long-term project and you could count on base minimum of you know, $40,000 in revenues, that could go towards funding a longer-term project. I mean, we all know we're never going to build an arena unless we get millions, tens of millions of dollars. But if we don't get tens of millions of dollars, we're gonna have to find capital to fund projects, you know, to keep our facilities running or keep them going, so.
But the thing is, you have to look at the demographics. Again, we have less than 100, I'm assuming, we have less than 100 kids in hockey. How much money are we going to, $60 times 100 is not going to buy you a new active living center. And I realize that you might have some points, but we have to discuss it further.
And
Oh, yeah.
and that's exactly why, you know, that's exactly why it's not up to us to brainstorm this idea, you know, as much as we may or may not like the idea.
And
But
so
I think
again, on
from-
your
from-
minor hockey, so you need 100% buy-in before the hockey team will get a reduced rate?
No, they wouldn't get a reduced rate, but their person who joins minor hockey, if they don't have a recreation fee, pays $20 more, okay,
To the club.
to the club. We don't care about that, because we're still charging minor hockey whatever our ice rate is, right? But that's the option you have. So if you don't do any recreation, and people say, well, I don't use the pool. Well, fair enough, but if you use the trail system, if you use, you know, if you're a snowmobiler and you get access out of our community through the designated trails, that is part of a recreation or part of our mandate that we have to kind of at least monitor and whatnot. So I think you would need minor hockey, you need the number one, because they use our facility, you need the cross-country ski club to buy into it and agree because they're using our facility. It's a little more tentative with, say, the off-road and the snowmobilers, because they either maintain that trail, but it does go through our property on designated areas, okay? And those are the things that you want those people to buy into it, because we're not asking them, okay, we're asking them to charge more or a two-tiered rate, right? But we're not asking for that extra money. We get our money from the recreation fee. We don't get our money from their increased rates.
So Councilor Lake?
I think I'm still confused. So I mean, I could see a user group saying, great, if I can charge extra money, but that's kind of odd. What's the benefit to the user? So if I am going to purchase a recreation fee, what's the benefit to me?
Because you'll be paying, I'll say $100 for a service, okay? If you have the rec fee. If you don't have the rec fee, then you pay $120. So that's how you offset the things there.
But I had to buy the rec fee, right?
Right.
Or if you buy the rec fee. If you don't, you pay 10% more. So you can decide, if I'm only gonna go golfing, then it's not worth it me buying a rec fee. I'll just pay the extra $57, right? 10% would be $57. But if it's $60 to buy it, and I can pay $575, why would I not, right?
The money's ultimately going to the
Proportionally, it's
municipality
gonna
anyway.
go to recreation. We're not gonna say it's gonna be designated just for the golf course, because let's be honest, if we you know, the arena costs the most money to operate, right?
Right.
And has one of the smaller streams flowing through, based on cost. We tried the
Active
cost
living.
recovery, we've tried everything else, okay? And ultimately, what the idea ends up being is we charge 0% or 2% on our recreation fees, which are user-based,
Yeah.
okay? And then we supplement everything else with taxation, which is disproportionately unfair, okay? So one of the ideas behind this is that issue. The other issue is if we go to the Ministry of, Municipal Affairs and Housing and are bidding on a new project, and we're saying, well, we have this great project in mind here, well, how are you gonna fund it? Well, we have our community-based recreation fee, which we get participation at 30% or 20%, which people are buying into because it's supporting capital recreation projects. It's a little bit more weight than say, oh, we're just gonna add it on taxes, okay?
But let me hold you there for a second, Councilor Bush, because you're saying on one side that you're gonna give the increased fees to the recreational user groups.
The ones that we don't directly charge for, yes.
Well, it doesn't make sense, because if we're gonna get the increased fee from, if I'm minor hockey and I get charged $60 for the kid as a single, and I'm gonna only give him a discount of 5%, he's still gonna be paying $30 in additional over top of his minor hockey fee.
But that's one portion.
I'm
If
just-
he's
yeah,
a
yeah.
golfer, if he
Yeah, yeah.
uses the pool, if
Yep.
he does all that thing. So it's a big thing. And it also, what I'm saying though, is it also gives the person who only does one thing, One thing only.
So
That
I
option,
I
right?
think this is, you got some ideas here that might be worth investigating through administration, having a discussion, looking at all those user groups and what the benefit is. But at the end of the day, it's still an additional tax, an additional fee that we're not necessarily gonna receive back to the municipality. Those user groups will be beneficiaries of them, but
We
unless
get,
you use
yeah,
two or
but we
three.
get the recreation fee portion that they pay, right? So we get that portion, and we designate it as a capital fund or right, for recreation. And I think that's one of the key things that we don't have right now. We have the cart passes, which is supposed to be designated towards that portion, but it hasn't, okay? So this is the one thing that, you know, and it's based on your choice. You have a choice on pay the recreation fee, save money here and there, don't pay it and just use my one facility, as opposed to us saying, we need to raise taxes 5% because we're gonna fund a new compressor in the arena, right?
Okay, so I mean, like I said, I think you got some ideas that might be beneficial to investigate, but obviously for 2019 season, you're not gonna have these implemented. You're asking council to investigate through administration what those might look like. So if you're gonna fee only minor hockey or curling, or golfing, or the pool usage, if you're only one using it, you're not gonna be beneficial. It's gonna be really an administrative nightmare to try to kind of figure this out, who pays what, where, when, and why.
No different than a membership card, right? That's the idea behind it.
Councilor Valens?
Daryl, the active living, is that still something the town's doing, or has that
No.
program been scrapped?
Yeah, we eliminated it and just went with facility memberships.
And is that because there was no buy-in into it?
It wasn't beneficial. You know, the obvious intent was that it would generate more revenue, and it ended up being more administrative, in all honesty, and it didn't generate the revenues we thought it would.
So
So-
could this be pretty much with that?
Similar
Seem
looking.
How-
How, yeah,
radical.
okay, but if I can comment on this thing, the reason why is because we didn't get buy-in from the Cross Country Ski Club. Cross Country Ski Club said, no, we're a private group, we don't have to offer you a package on that portion. Minor hockey was the different animal too, right? We couldn't offer them a discount or a group pay for minor hockey. This is the same idea, I won't say the same idea, this is, and I'll be honest, it is a way to get revenue for recreation. And it's a way to get revenue for recreation only, okay, as a capital fund, okay? But it also gets you the benefit, if we can get the buy-in from the other groups, of saving 10% on each person or each group that uses our facility, right? Or leases our facility or has access to our facility.
But then again, you're, on one side, you're talking about increased generating revenue, and I'm trying to do some quick math. So if I'm a family rate and I pay the $100 or whatever that fee looks like for my youth and myself, and they're gonna play golf and they're gonna swim. So now the municipality is probably gonna take a loss of $200 on a $100 fee that you're generating.
How?
Well, because,
Because they pay the same base rate.
no, by
No,
what
they
you're
pay the
saying,
same base rate, but they don't pay 20% more for other issues. I hate to term this thing here because I'm sure we'll give the opportunity for our neighbors in Heron Bay to buy, or Bitbegon to buy a membership. The issue behind this, one of these factors is basically, and I'll come out and say it, a resident and a non-resident fee. Okay, so if you have the option of doing it as opposed to taxation,
well,
okay?
absolutely, but I think this has to be a little bit more thought out in regards to the actual structure and what your goal is to generate revenue.
And that's why I highly recommend we ask administration to explore the idea
Sure.
behind it,
Okay.
okay? And explore the idea, and as the CEO stated, we can revisit fees and charges at any given time.
Sure.
So the natural progression would be either before summer ice starts, because it's after the golf season, okay, or halfway through the golf season, because we cannot implement this on a calendar year. Our seasons cross too much in order for us to do this. We buy annual memberships at the swimming pool whenever you want, but somewhere point in time, we're gonna have to decide where the cutting off point would be. And I think administration asking for a report, because it may not be feasible, right? Or, you know, you may get pushed from the community saying, well, I'd rather pay it in taxation, okay? However, like I said, it's one way of doing certain things differently, okay? And trying to generate revenue or money just for recreation.
Okay, so Councilor Valens?
And I just want to know, Kelly, is this something that you've thought of yourself, or is someone else, another community, doing it on the North Shore? Or?
It's not really a lot in the North Shore. I mean, if you look at from the section and when you go to, and I'll say, the communities that have no infrastructure or no recreation fees, yet you get the benefit of the recreation. Okay, Shunya, whatever it may be. So those kind of issues like that. So from a perspective of those communities, the non-user fee or non-resident rate is different. So if I go to the library, if I try and buy a membership or whatever it may be, they're not asking for my ID, right, of where it is. However, Thunder Bay supports Zone 1, Zone 2, up to Zone 4 for, you know, recreation services, park services, and all those things. The idea behind it, and it's not far-fetched from the fact that you have a resident fee and a non-resident fee. I didn't want to structure it that way or say it that way, because I'm sure we're going to offer the, if it becomes feasible, this rec fee for our neighbors, right? But the idea behind it is, in the same way they said, we're trying to get more from the people who don't support our recreation through taxation, okay? The business community, whatever it may be, and I agree that the stay and play is one way of doing it, okay? But it's also a way of generating revenue for, okay, recreation, in a sense that without just keeping adding fees onto it, okay?
Okay.
It won't make sense if you only use one facility, but if you have a family and your 2 kids are in hockey and you golf or you swim or whatever, it makes sense.
Okay. Any other comments on that?
So,
Yep.
Your Worship, if I could suggest 2 things, if this is something that council is going to agree with, and, you know, I think it'll simplify things for administration. So, one, I think it would be a solid idea for administration to bring forward in terms of reference in January of exactly what, I understand what Councillor Tabushi is trying to achieve. So we can notarize that and present it to council to make sure we're all in agreement that that's what we're going to study, because this is going to take some time and some effort. And then the second is, I always like to base things that we bring forward in facts. So my recommendation would be, you know, based on the terms of reference, if council approved it, we look at communities of similar sizes across Canada and likely the northern U.S. on models of similar style to what Councillor Tabushi is proposing, because that way we know whether they've worked well or they haven't.
Right.
Right. Without that, I think we're just all over the map, and I'm not sure how we could ever compare a new system or a differentiated system to what we do right now, right, without basing it in some kind of research in terms of models that are similar that have worked or haven't worked. But I think we need the base terms of reference, so we have clarity from council on what we're looking at.
Sure. Any other comments? Councillor Leak?
Yeah, you know, I also think, certainly when I think about the priorities for this council, one of my number one that I see at the list is a relationship with our neighboring communities.
Right.
I think the path forward is certainly about coming together as one community. It's not about treating people as 2 different types of citizen, and that really makes me nervous as a road even to investigate. I mean, the tax that occurs on anybody from coming from Beattigon to play hockey is you got to drive into town every day. The cost of recreation is already higher for them, right? I mean, you got to pay the gas, you got to get into town. And if it wasn't for Beattigon, we certainly wouldn't have minor hockey. I mean, I think I look at the recreation usage, and it's really high with our Indigenous partners. So that's not even a road I would want to go down to investigate. I understand it's frustrating to say there are people that are not paying the same taxation towards recreation as we are, but I really do think, for me, the vision of our 2 communities is one community. Maybe there are some trade-offs in different areas, and that there are certainly, I think, some benefits to the relationship we get in other areas. It does make me nervous to treat kind of that 2-citizen approach.
Certainly, and this council in the past has discussed that very issue, and we've walked away from that. We did have no interest in that 2-tiered system in regards to a non-resident tax increase on recreation fees. So Councillor Lake's absolutely right. I think you want to look at this as just a simple recreational type membership fee for all residents. And if it doesn't look good on paper, then it's something that we won't investigate any further. So I think that you have to really be very clear on what you're looking at and what you want to bring forward in the new year. Councillor Dewish, you want any more comments on that?
I just, yeah, like I said, why.
Your mic, please.
Why I brought this forward is I do understand we need some exploration on this thing. And I do understand that one of the choices that people are gonna, or would make or have to make is it worth my while? okay? But I think that gives them the choice as opposed to taxation. And the best thing is we need to develop some kind of capital fund for recreation moving forward. I could say, well, let's raise it 10% and put 10% of all fees onto a capital fund, but it doesn't give a choice, right? And then the same thing that happens is if we lose one member, does it become a net negative, okay?
Okay,
So on the recreation, I have one more question about the fees and charges, okay? And I don't know if this is the portion to bring it up, because I didn't notice it.
go right ahead.
Okay, so one of the issues with
This is the portion you want to bring that up.
Okay, because I don't know if it's fees and charges, okay? One of the things that's always been available to us as communities after, I guess, the Toronto Act was taxations on rooms and then taxations of secondary sources of revenues.
Right.
Okay.
We've discussed that.
That report is coming to council
Yeah.
in the first January meeting.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if this was.
The term is under the municipal act, it's municipal accommodation tax.
So the other question I have too is, all our fees and charges based on highway calls, and I know that we bill out and sorry, but have they changed in the last years, or is that something at AMO, NOMA, and whatever? Because when they dropped a bombshell on us about volunteer firefighters and what potentially could happen, okay, in that issue, and although they have not implemented the regulations to bring any of that forward, okay, the issue is that a political issue that we have to push, to get increases, or is it something that they have explored, or is it still just that this is what you get based per hour, based per call, whatever it may be?
Daryl?
So that actual item, the mayor and I did present at AMO in August to Minister Fideli. The fact that highway calls haven't fundamentally changed, certainly haven't kept up with inflation. So one of our presentation items at that meeting with the Minister of Finance was that the model should start to incorporate inflation as a bare minimum moving forward. He was receptive to the idea, and certainly we can follow it up at our meeting at Roma at the end of January. But we have brought that forward as a municipality.
Okay, because one of the other things is, and it's probably tribute to our force, is that we probably make more highway calls, and maybe because of the logistics of where centrally located, than any other probably department on the North Shore. So that's the other thing that it unfairly, or in a sense, burdens us, yet we do get the revenue from it, and I'm not saying it's not a revenue source, but it does unburden us or burden us when it doesn't keep up with inflation, or it doesn't keep up with our turnover equipment because of the usage.
Absolutely. Anything else? Councillor Hatton, how's this all for you? It's pretty interesting stuff. Perfect. It's one of those things that you have to do every year and look at the fees and charges to keep your facilities open and not burden the taxpayer too much over the year. As we all know that those facilities, as we want to have quality of life in our community, cost money to operate, and people have to realize that. So to continue operating a pool, for example, we know there's only a return of probably 15 to 20% on the actual pool, but it's one of those quality of life things you want to continue to have in your community because it's that thing that you can utilize and enjoy. The arenas, they always cost money. What are we returning, 40 to 50% on our arena?
About 50.
You know? So, the taxpayers are definitely picking up the remaining costs of that facility to operate. The golf course is probably one of our leading revenue generators, but last year was not a good year. We had some high costs of operating, and hopefully we can generate more memberships there. So by not increasing those fees, actually reducing those fees on the green fees, minimal increases across the board, those are the kind of things. And when Councilor DeBouche is talking about additional fees and capital expenditures, things that I don't need to operate at the golf course is my golf buggy. So if you want to nail me on my golf buggy. I know I'll get a lot of criticism for that, but those are the things you don't need to golf with. You need a set of golf clubs and 2 legs, or whatever your access point is to get out there. So having a golf buggy is part of an additional fee you can charge in those things, right? But so those are the kind of areas you can nail. But other than that, I think the overall package is pretty good. So with that being said, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of 2019 fees and charges? The motion. Okay. So we do have a bylaw coming forward in that regard. So I have a bylaw here, that bylaw number 1940 being a bylaw to authorize the establishment of fees and charges for the town of Marathon for the year ending December 31st, 2019, be read first, second time, and third time as well, and finally passed the 17th day of December 2018. Moved by Councillor DeBouche, second by Councillor Valance. Any questions, errors, or omissions on that motion? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Yeah, just on the hotel tax, Councilor Debuchy, that was brought up through NOMA and asked all municipalities in the 3 districts, 37, to support that, going back to their various municipalities, so we're all on the same page. So as the report comes forward, hopefully by that time, all the municipalities will have had the opportunity as well to put that on their agendas and discuss it and pass it through their municipalities. There's not, 1 or 2 out there that are saying no and the rest of us are, so it's a fair taxation right across the board. And as you know, we all been in Thunder Bay in the last, several months or weeks. You'll know that $4 or $5 is applied to your bill now. That goes right back to the city's coffers for tourism promotion. And hopefully they reflect that in their budget. Same as we won't see a huge generating revenue, but it's nice revenue stream to offset some of our programming or advertising in our community, right? So it's just that little, and work the chamber and various things that can help offset those things. So. Any other comments before we adjourn this meeting? No, hearing none. Thank you very much, administration. That was a great fees and charges report. And moved by Councilor Valens, second by Councilor Lake, that we do adjourn at the hour of 7:45. Thank you. Have a good night. So Kelly,